Dear EO Summit participants, welcome to session number 2. My name is Hofer and I'm from the University of Salzburg in Austria. I'm acting as a moderator of this session, and to get started I would like to introduce the speakers of the session. The second speaker is going to be Iona Vlad Sandru from the Romanian Space Agency, followed by Missoni-Steinbacher and Florian Albrecht, who are both colleagues from the University of Salzburg. Let's take a look at the content of this session. I'm going to start with an introduction to the main topic of the session number 2 with a presentation called Real-World Problems and Work Processes as Starting Point for Case-Based Learning Scenarios. Iona will then talk about business processes and occupational profiles, before Eva will tell you more about the whole sequence of business process analysis, curriculum design, and training material development. Florian will introduce a real-world case of how business processes led to the identification of occupational profiles and skills, and the example is the case of landslide documentation. All the presentations are pre-recorded, and we will have a discussion of the content at the end of the session. If you want to contribute to the discussion, please add your questions to the chat. I start the presentation with a reminder of the vision of the sector skills strategy of the Rapporteur project. The vision says that in order to support the growth of the Earth observation and geoinformatics sector in Europe, we need to make sure that the workforce of this sector is equipped with the right skills in the right place at the right time. There are a lot of questions that can be derived from this vision and that need to be addressed in order to achieve it. A few of them are going to be addressed in this session today. One of them is, what do EO and GI professionals need to know in order to succeed on the market? So what is the skills demand on the market that people, that workforce need to fulfill? Then we all know that skills are not stable and that they evolve over time. So one of the interesting questions to address is what skills will be relevant in the future. What we would like to make sure in the Rapporteur project is that the curricula that we are designing, the training actions we provide are matching the demand of the market. So we need to make sure that the tasks involved in work processes are considered in the design of curricula. We are building on several components in order to address these questions and to hopefully answer them as well. The foundation to make sure that our curricula and also the training solutions are addressing the market needs is that we start with business processes and analyze what people are working on in their jobs. This provides us with tasks that people need to be able to solve. These tasks are then linked to the body of knowledge, which is a collection of concepts of our domain, and which also includes skills. And there is a direct link between tasks, skills, and concepts that will be further explained in the following slide. We are preparing a set of tools like the Occupational Profile tool and the Curriculum Design tool that help us to document the profiles that were identified and to describe the curricula that are designed and also will allow the match between a profile and people who follow the curriculum. And then we have the curricula, which are describing the structure of how content is provided to learners. And the curricula are designed for both types of training, vocational education and training, as well as academic education. I promised that I would show you how tasks, skills, and concepts are related. And in order to show that, we came up with this metaphor of trees, plants, growing on a soil and a substrate layer. The concepts are well defined, they are well known, and they are documented in the body of knowledge. They really provide the substrate layer, the solid foundation on which further things can build. Skills are somewhat more changeable, but they are always linked to concepts. In order to have some skills, you need to understand the concepts that are behind those skills. And you need to have practical means of applying concepts in tools, for example. That is what the skills are. Tasks can grow on the foundation of certain skill sets. And these are then the tasks that need to be accomplished in a certain work context. In the project, we are addressing the collection of concepts, skills, and tasks from different directions. We have business process models or descriptions of work processes as one source of tasks, and we then try to relate the tasks to the skills and concepts that they include. But of course, there is also a lot of experts involved in the collection of concepts that are described in the body of knowledge. So we try to combine a top-down and a bottom-up approach. If you would like to read more about this business-oriented perspective that we have on the design of the body of knowledge, I can point you to a publication that is available online already. What we are going to discuss in this session is the path that leads from business process analysis to learning scenarios. Iona is going to tell you more about business process analysis and the derivation of occupational profiles from the analysis of business processes. Eva is going to talk about all of the boxes that you see here, and will show how the business process analysis and an analysis of future skills is considered in the modular approach to curriculum design, and which is then related to the training material development approach that we foresee, which is based on an innovative combination of interactive tools. The training material that is developed will then be used in training action, will be applied in such learning scenarios, and this will be a topic for a presentation in a later session of the EO Summit. Florian's presentation will show you how these rather generic components can be applied to the real case of landslide documentation. With that, I come to an end with a short overview of the content of session number 2. And I would like to hand over to my colleague, Iona.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Iona Vlad, and on behalf of Romanian Space Agency, I'll have a presentation on business processes and occupational profiles as a basis for academic curricula development. The presentation will cover an overview of the business process models issues. Then we'll focus on the methodology implementation, and finally, which are the results derived from the present analysis, mainly categories of occupational profiles derived from the business process models. First of all, I have to answer the question of what is a business process model. A quite clear definition describes the business process as a network of connected activities divided into tasks with well-defined boundaries and relationships which utilize resources to transform input into output with the purposes of satisfying stakeholders' requirements. It was managed a complete workflow process for collecting business process models from Earth observation geoinformation industry based on predefined input requests embodied in a template for developing business process models, where the study case was described. Afterwards, each business process model was mapped using business process model and notation language maintained by the object management group, which use a rich set of symbols and notations for business process diagrams. The objective of business process model and notation is to support business process management for both technical users and business users by providing a notation that is intuitive to business users, yet able to represent complex process semantics. The basic similarities and differences between the business process models, and among them I'll mention the duration of the process divided in short-term events, which includes processes which need to be accomplished in a rapid phase as to avoid the possible extensive damages, and the long-term events category define a widened period of time when processes get accomplished for delivering a product or a service based on a service level agreement. The other criteria are related to the way of triggering the process, the quantity of data needed, complexity of image processing, type of results, and finally, and most important, the most essential criteria for this analysis is the occupational profile derived from the business process models. But before getting into details related to these occupational profiles, I have to take into consideration the basic unit of business process model, which is the task. The task is a step in a business process and the most fundamental business process element, since it defines a unit of work. It's an action which a process participant completes step by step to reach the business goal. Is a resource for the design of business-oriented educational program and curricula. The common tasks in our observation and geoinformatics business processes are related to the support requests received and process preliminary information, then database interrogation and selection of valid data, preliminary processing of satellite data, realize the informational product and corresponding metadata, send final products to the stakeholder, and the confirmation of receiving the products and their integrity. Then, related to the occupational profiles mentioned before, according to European skills, competences, qualifications, and occupations classification, an occupation is a grouping of jobs involving similar tasks which require similar skill set. The scope of ESCO occupations was determined by analyzing the functions and activities which are expected to be performed as part of the occupation, embedding the knowledge, skills, and competences that are needed to successfully perform the functions. So to say, the occupational profile are showing the relationship between occupation, knowledge, skills, competences, and qualifications. The profiles which were generally mentioned in the business process models are related to geologist, EO analyst, city planner, human resource officer, administration officer, service provider. The present graphic provides an overview of the identified occupational profiles per category as well as fieldwork in which these profiles were developed. Which are the different types of occupational profiles derived here, taking into consideration to what degree Earth observation geoinformatics related tasks are present in the profiles. It were defined 4 profiles, and I will start with the Earth observation geoinformatics core profile, which is that profile which involves task completion related to Earth observation and geoinformatics. This applies to Earth observation analysts, for example. The second one is the managerial profile, can be found in different sectors of application-oriented business dedicated to a certain field and covering Earth observation tasks as one important field of their work. This involves the distribution of tasks in a service provider setting or tender specification. The third one is the peripheral profile, mainly applied to those who realize the need of Earth observation support and demand a service which is provided by one of the first two already mentioned types. This applies to city planners, for example. And the last one is the Earth observation geoinformatics complementary profiles, which are technical or administrative profiles which need to have a certain idea of Earth observation related business processes happening in their company, while a deeper understanding is not necessary. In order to have a clear image of how to do the types of profiles look like, it can be used the occupational profile tool available on the platform of EO4Geo collaborative tools. This tool allows to create occupational job profiles while connecting them to the body of knowledge concepts and ESCO regarding the skill needed. For example, the general information requested for an occupational profile as EO analyst are related to title, application domain, description, knowledge, and transversal skills. As for concluding, this analysis is based on the collection of 30 different business process models. The workflows are covering all the 3 subsectors present in EO4Geo project, namely integrated applications, smart cities, and climate change. The business processes covering not only core workflows, of the Earth observation geoinformatics domain, but also sales, project management, and administrative workflows. The business process description include thematic, field, data usage, organizational context, tasks performed, occupational profiles needed. The occupational profiles deriving from these business process models cover a substantial part of relevant market section, and business process model annotation standard used in all these analysis offers a rich and expressive but also complex language to use for the tasks associated with process modeling. Thank you for your attention.
Hello, my name is Eva Missoni from the University of Salzburg, and I'm project employee for the EU4GEO project. What I am going to do now is to provide you with a condensed introduction of the sequence, how we get from business processes to curriculum design and further on to training material development. This is an overview to better understand how all the elements and tasks from business process collection over the curriculum design and training material development are interlinked. And in the subsequent sessions and presentations today and also tomorrow, there will be a more deep insight into the details of the different aspects that you see here then. So you just learned about the business processes and occupational profiles, which are mentioned at the top here, and you can get a glimpse how these are connected to the following steps of creating educational offers and training material. What we are going to do now is to zoom into the different parts and explore them a bit more. The first one is related to the business processes and occupational profiles, because as you just heard, these are very important as they provide a basis for the development of educational offers. But what we have to keep in mind, business processes always relate to the status quo of workflows, which means that they already existing and implemented in companies, institutions, and organizations. And in our case, the business processes that were collected were mainly provided by the partners of the EU4GEO project, so this imposes a kind of limitation which work profiles and which related tasks can be identified. To fulfill the tasks that are mentioned in the BPMNs, certain skill sets are required, and these skills can also be found in the EO and GI body of knowledge. There is a more detailed session on this tomorrow morning. The body of knowledge consists of domain-related concepts in the EO and GI domain. And on the other side, we have interviews, which were conducted by Nereus. Nereus is a network of European regions using space technologies. The interviews were done with members of private companies and the public sectors on their views and the future and the skills that the future workforce shall have. So, in addition to the status quo insights deriving from the business processes, the interviews are quite interesting to see what messages came out. And what we understand here is that related to the private sector, certain hard and soft skills were mentioned to be relevant several times. Namely, these are programming and deep learning and machine learning skills, as well as commercial and selling skills that were mentioned frequently as being valuable soft skills. On the other hand, for the private sector, it was stressed out that there is a kind of lack how to use EO data in general and to find out more about the potentiality that EO and GI provide to the users. So the public institutions have more basic requirements what shall be taught. In other words, the findings of the interviews are quite well complementing what can be found out in the business processes. So when it gets to the business processes, a collection of 30 of them were collected and analyzed due to the work profiles that were mentioned and the tasks that were related to those work profiles. An analysis and comparison of the tasks helped to identify the similarities between the profiles that were having similar tasks and the identification of occupational profiles and core workflows. Core workflows means a chain of tasks which reappear in a similar manner across several profiles. To have more insight, was it necessary for the curricula and in the further course also for the development of training material, we need to deeper look into the task, what knowledge and skills are required to complete the tasks. As a result of the different work profiles that were mentioned in the business processes, they can be assigned to one out of the 4 categories of profiles. These categories are grouped according to the similarities of work profiles and the tasks. So here we see core profiles, which relate to the profiles that mainly cover tasks that are directly related to the EO and GI sector. The managerial profiles indicate that there are managerial tasks which have to be fulfilled related to keeping EO and GI business working. Peripheral profiles refer to people mainly working in other domains, but they also have a substantial part of tasks that are somehow related to EO and GI. And finally, complementary profiles are such profiles where the workers should have a slight knowledge in EO and GI, but they mainly focus on work in another field. So when it gets to the development of curricula and educational offers, it is an important step to consider that there shall be a balance between the educational offers, means that we cannot only serve offers related to core profiles, but we also need to consider the peripheral profiles and managerial profiles. In particular, also as future addresses of training offers will come from these sectors. Taking, for example, managerial profiles, the interviews on the future skills turned out the importance of selling skills and commercial skills. So it is quite important to consider this in the development of educational offers as well. The list on the right side is not the final version of curricula. But when we look at this proposal, we have a strong relation to core profiles and peripheral profiles, with one curriculum mentioned for legal aspects. But furthermore, we have to consider that managerial skills are requested when we look at the requirements for future workforce. Also, for example, for someone who has a peripheral profile. So this stresses out the importance of modularity that we want to achieve. That this means that the curricula consists of certain building blocks on the level of modules or courses, and these might not only relate to one profile, but they can also be used for other curricula. So when we look at the next stage, the curricular development, we can perceive that the level on which educational offers will be formulated can vary. In particular, for academic curricula, it will be too detailed to elaborate them on the level of single lectures. So lectures can rather be left to the teaching staff that is doing the syllabus, but theoretically they could also be detailed here. An educational offer on the web level might consist of modules, the related courses and the lectures, or even more compact, for example, one course and related lectures. The educational offers are going to be represented and displayed in the curriculum design tool that was developed by project partners and which allows a direct linkage to the domain concepts in the EO and GI body of knowledge. This will be presented later on. What you can also perceive are the highlighted blocks on the level of courses in this graph. One within the academic and one within the web offer. This coloring refers to the potential of a module that can be used as a building block for both offers. And the same applies, of course, for single lectures. Also, single lectures can be used or reused for different educational offers. This table is an overview of different types of educational offers. We won't go into detail here because this is going to be addressed in the following session. What I want to emphasize here is highlighted by the red frames. The left one highlights the connection to and the consideration of the 4 types of occupational profiles deriving from the business processes, whether a curricula are connected to core, peripheral, or managerial profiles. And the right frame indicates the relation to the particular business process that was collected. On this side, you can see that these are the partly EO and GI related profiles and also the ones that are just peripheral related to EO and GI. So when the educational offers are getting transferred into the curriculum development tool, we have a view here covering an academic curriculum on the level of a title, modules, and courses, but there are no particular lectures assigned. In the next example of an educational offer, this is the view of a course being displayed in the tool. And here the course is indicated on the top level and is further detailed down to the level of lectures. This is the third example I wanted to show you. Here, the educational offer consists of a module having several courses, and you can see one of those courses expanded and listing the associated lectures. So the displayment of the curricula can happen on different levels, and you do not have to detail each level down to the single lectures. Now we are going to the field of preparing and developing training material. We proposed Reveal.js as a presentation framework for training material development. Reveal.js is based on HTML5 or also Markdown and can be used to create content. And the advantage is the capability of Reveal to include also other resources, like, for example, Jupyter notebooks or interactive H5P learning content, and also external websites. To find and reuse the learning material, it's quite important that the content has metadata and annotations available. A very important part of the metadata are the annotations with the domain concepts of the body of knowledge, because these allow for filtering the material collection with a focus on a certain topic of interest and obtaining a list of training material that matches the requested content. Furthermore, for those of you who attend from the teaching domain and that are used to formulating learning objectives, Bloom's taxonomy or Bloom's revised taxonomy might be well known. Within the EU4Geo project, an own version of the taxonomy was developed. Bloom's taxonomy consists of a list of verbs that are related to learning. And there are different ways of learning, which are represented through the 6 different stages. So this adapted taxonomy we will use to formulate learning outcomes. And these learning outcomes then again can be linked to the skills that are mentioned in the body of knowledge. What you can see here is the overview of a Reveal slideshow. It also offers the possibility of presenter notes, and besides the flow of horizontal slides, which we are used from, for example, PowerPoint presentations, the presentation framework offers the possibility to dive deeper into certain aspects you would like to elaborate further by adding vertical slides as well. Regarding training material content, there is already a good amount of offers available from different organizations. Within the EU4Geo project, we aim to adapt existing material and develop new material exemplary with respect to the existing gaps and future requirements that were identified to contribute to the growth of EO and GI sector and related business processes. And to test the approach and also to bridge the gap between education and practice, mobility programs play an important role. As the interviews with private sector stakeholders suggested, industry endorses candidates who are familiar with industry environments. Different ways of internships and also project works in several formats offer the possibilities to bring together educational and economical demands. So here I come to an end with my presentation, and I want to thank you for your attention.
So hello, my name is Florian Albrecht from the Department for Geoinformatics of the University of Salzburg, and I want to present to you today the talk, how to get from BPMN to Occupational Profiles and Skills, the landslide documentation example. So the purpose of this talk is to show you how BPMN can be used for describing workflows of Earth observation, and will be focused on an example about landslide documentation in Austria, and it shall serve for identifying the people and their occupational profiles within business processes, and to identify their skills that they need to do their job. And this will then be the basis for designing curricula and providing training actions. So about landslide documentation. Landslides are a hazard in Austria, in particular in mountainous regions, and they happen frequently in our region, mostly because of heavy rainfall. And what you can see on these images is an event from the summer of 2017, where in the Großaal Valley, which is in the state of Salzburg, there happened landslides and mud flows. So the mud flow that you can see here blocked the road for quite some time, and you can see that a lot of construction, a lot of cleanup is done to get the road ready and remove the damage. We have identified these mud flows in a Sentinel-2 image that was taken shortly after the event, and with a pre-event image from a couple of days before the event, it is possible to really see the difference from before and after. And so in the left image, I have outlined the mud flows of that area, and you can see that it's clearly identifiable in the satellite image. At the Department for Geoinformatics, we had a research project running, which is called Landslide. It was focused on designing an interactive web service that uses Earth observation satellite images and lets a user map landslides and identify the affected infrastructure. The dedicated users for that web service are regional geological and surveying authorities, as well as infrastructure operators that want to assess damage from landslides. And in the project, our pre-operational web service, we showed that in a validation workshop to users, and was quite interesting to see how quick it is possible to identify landslides for them, even if their background is not in Earth observation, but rather on the topic of landslides. More about that project you can find on our website called landslide.sbg.ac.at. And there are a couple of publications that we had, for example, the one featured on the right side of the slide here, which is about comparing semi-automatic and manual mapping of landslides in Sentinel-2 images. And the advantages of using semi-automatic mapping compared to alternative methods. So this is our use case, landslide documentation. And for this use case, landslide documentation, we designed a BPMN model. This BPMN model shows how a geological authority would request landslide information from an EO mapping provider. And the EO mapping provider is, there you can see that two people are working together, which is the GIS expert and the Earth observation analyst, and they provide information about the task. So from the request about documentation of landslide damage, the two experts start and gather Earth observation data, do the pre-processing of that data, use the data to extract landslide information, and then identify damaged infrastructure, given that they have received infrastructure information from the geological authority, and thereby they can provide a damage map that then the geological authorities use, for example, for including such maps in event documentation. I want to focus on the lowest swim lane, that of the EO analyst and his tasks in there. So for our exercise that we want to do here is to identify the skills that an EO analyst needs to perform the tasks that he is supposed to be doing. So in the pre-processing of Earth observation data, one task is, for example, to geometrically correct the Earth observation image. And therefore, one of the tasks of the skills here needs to be able to do is to transform the satellite image from image coordinates to georeferenced map coordinates of a reference data set. So that is georeferencing in short. And I have a second example of a skill that the EO analyst needs, which is classification of Earth observation images. And there one particular method would be to apply object-based image analysis methods for extracting information from optical imagery. Those skills in the EO4Geo project, we have a body of knowledge, and we document those skills in that body of knowledge, together with the concepts about Earth observation and geoinformation. So much about skills. So we come now to the occupational profiles. For that particular example of landslide documentation, you have seen the a small version of a BPMN, and which is a bit simplified, and in a company setting of an Earth observation mapping provider, this would include many more people. So I would have more swim lanes, not only the EO analyst and the GIS expert, but maybe also a customer contact and a geomorphologist or a geologist who goes into the field and does field mapping to verify the results coming out of the satellite images, and a couple of more people that support the process in the background. The EO analysts, if we look at that occupational profile, we saw two skills that he needs, and they contribute to a certain skill set of that Earth observation analyst. Each skill in the body of knowledge is connected to the concept. Object-based image analysis is, for example, a concept in the body of knowledge, and shows that background knowledge is necessary in order to be able to perform such skills. So skill sets and knowledge are part of the occupational profile of an EO analyst, and that is one of the profiles that we put into the occupational profile tool of our project. So with these occupational profiles and the skills, we have a good basis for designing training actions. For example, the GeoBio summer school that's just started and takes also place virtually, and it is focused on OBIA for the operational Copernicus Service Challenge. And on the one side, it has focuses on a particular skill set that people should learn there, or where people want to get proficient in. And concerning the occupational profiles, they can serve as a target group identification, and they can serve as being the educational goal of such training actions. So occupational profile is the thing that a student may aim for when he does certain training actions. In this way, the BPMN is well suited to identify skills and occupational profiles. And this way, in the EU4Geo project, we used the BPMN to identify skills. We embedded them in the EU4Geo body of knowledge, where they now serve as a main source for curriculum design and training action design, and can become learning objectives for training actions. The occupational profiles from the BPMN, they allow us to identify the target groups for training actions and allow us to define the educational goals for curricula and for those trainings actions that are part of the curricula. So this is how occupational profiles and skills, as we have identified them in the BPMN for landslide documentation, have served us in the EU4Geo project to support training action design and perform training actions in the subsequent steps of our project. So thank you very much for listening. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them, and you can come back to me in the discussion. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. The recorded part of our session is over, and now we welcome you to a live interaction, a question and answer part of our session. You can see that Eva and Florian and myself, Barbara, we are all sitting here in the University of Salzburg, and we will do the talking together. And Iona joins us from the Romanian Space Agency, or basically from her home, I guess.
Yeah, it's true. I'm home.
So you see,
hello, everyone, and I'm very glad to attend this EO Summit. I thank you, Barbara, for this introduction, and hope everyone will gather useful information from this discussion.
Thank you, Iona. So it's now the turn of the audience to add some questions to the collection of questions, and we see that there are some coming in. For us, it's a very new situation, and we miss having some closer interaction with the audience, where we can also post questions to the audience and maybe ask for your opinion. But we will try to do our best with the facilities that we have available today. Maybe I can start right away with answering the first questions that we got. One is from Jorge Delgado, who asked whether the slides will be available for download. The slides are not yet planned to be available for download. They might be contributed after the event, but what you can do for sure is to check the recording again, as the recorded session will be online until June 10th. So unfortunately, not all of the text on the slides was very well readable. That was also commented on by Slobodan Osanak. Sorry for that. We are sorry for that. If you have questions that remain open, please post them now to the chat, and we can revisit some of the content that has been presented. Antonio also asks a question. Let me read it out to you. One of the goals of the EU4Geo project is to create and establish a curriculum document for secondary and higher education. Creating a curriculum without a prior professional, is there any option to expand? So it seems that part of the question has been cut. I can only guess what Antonio wanted to find out. Prior professional, maybe you mean that we are also addressing audiences who have not yet any professional experience or on-the-job experience. Well, it's really a bit hard to guess from that what your question would be, also regarding the analysis of the work processes and so on that were subject of this session here. From that analysis, you could see that we really tried to cover tasks related to a series of different people involved in work processes. And they, of course, have different backgrounds. And the work processes also include people who are at different levels of their professional life. So now the question is more complete. Okay. So now Antonio added that the question of the professional development and training of teachers for teaching and performance of the curriculum programs in the field of Earth observation. We do plan to have some educational offers prepared for higher education and schools. And the material that is prepared in this context needs, of course, be usable for teachers. So it should be made in a way that teachers can make sense of it and can use it and have a sufficient understanding for then translating the content to their pupils and participants, the learners. This is really one of the tricky questions that we have to solve in the context of EU4Geo, namely to deal with the very different existing knowledge on Earth observation and geoinformatics, and then to decide how much content needs to go into the learning material to assure that the people can grasp the information, the new information. However, we do have very good examples of where learning is possible also for pupils and also for the teachers to teach the content. For example, in the environment in which we are here in the University of Salzburg, Eva is providing trainings to visiting school classes. And one of the modules is, for example, about GPS and contains the foundational concepts of GPS. And then people are using a device and do some measurements outside the building and can see then the track that they collected on a map. So it's possible and it's very useful to break down the complex topics also for these like audiences that are initiating the learning process in the field. Well, maybe as we wait for more questions to come in, we could tell you a bit more about the occupational profiles. All of this session is related to real-world work processes and the occupational profiles. And you might have heard about ESCO. I prepared some slides about ESCO. Which is the European Sorry. I hope you can see my screen now.
Great, I can see Barbara.
Thank you, Iona. ESCO is the European Skills, Competences and Qualifications and Occupations Framework. And they're collecting descriptions of occupations, and they describe these occupations by adding them to a certain place in a hierarchy, and also by collecting the skills and knowledge that are needed in that occupation. And you will see that the collection is really large, a couple of thousand occupations described, and they try to reuse skills and knowledge in the descriptions of the occupations. And actually, that also relates to the question that we had from Antonio, as teachers do also have a certain occupational profile, and they are included in ESCO in the ideal case. So also teachers would have the requirement to have some very foundational understanding of Earth observation and geoinformatics, and they should have skills, especially when I think of geography teachers, for example, about map reading, navigational tasks, and so on. In the context of Earth observation and geoinformatics, there are only a few profiles that are included in ESCO that are detailed with the skills and competences and the knowledge that people should have if they, for example, think of fulfilling the remote sensing technician profile. Now, we found in our analysis of ESCO that there is a few more things that we would like to see added to the occupational profile description. When I, for example, look at this example of the remote sensing technician, here essential skills and competences read that the remote sensing technician should be able to collect data using GPS, execute analytical mathematical calculations, keep task records, and so on. But where is all the part on working with satellite images, preprocessing satellite images, doing a validation of results, doing an interpretation of results, and so on? So we miss quite a few skills and competences. And a lot of our work that we spend on analyzing business processes and deriving occupational profiles is essentially a mirror to what has been done in ESCO. Here, they try to do this for a huge collection of occupational profiles, and we focus more on the profiles that are needed for working with Earth observation data and geoinformation. And one of the skills, as you can see here, would be very general, have spatial awareness. And this is a skill described by ESCO that is then attributed to a set of occupational profiles, like pilots, different types of pilots, but it could also be attributed to teachers, as we have been discussing before. And some of the content that Iona was presenting on the types of occupational profiles and this analysis of business processes, deriving occupational processes, is directed to detail the information we have about the occupational profiles in our sector and the skills and the knowledge required for doing the job in our sector. Iona can show you a bit more about how these occupational profiles are documented in a tool in our project. So I will end this presentation here again. And Iona, if you want to share your screen and show us how such an occupational profile is documented.
Thank you, Barbara. Just a moment in order to share my screen. Yeah. So you can see now.
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay, so you were mentioning about this occupational profile tool, which is developed within our project by our colleagues from the Geospatial Technologies Research Group from the University of Castellón in Spain, in the context of the Erasmus Plus Sector Skill Alliance project, EO4Geo. For the beginning, I will try to give an overview of what this tool intends to do. First of all, it allows users to browse, create, edit, and share occupational profiles in the field of Earth observation and geographic information. The profiles are linked to the EO4Geo body of knowledge, and we will see after that how we will do this. For specific concepts and skills, to the European skill competences and occupation classification for transversal and cross-sectoral skills. As you see here, on my screen, the occupational profile tool, I took as an example the ecologist occupational profile tool. In detail, the occupational profile tool has 4 main sections. The first one is the general information one, where you have general information related to this profile. For example, in the name of the ecologist, you have to apply principles and processes of natural ecosystems to develop models for environment system. Then use knowledge for the physical and social sciences to maximize effective use of natural resources, and examine societal issues and their relationship with both technical systems and the environment. Then the second main section is related to the knowledge you need to have related to this occupational profile. This section related to the knowledge includes the body of facts, principles, theories, practices that is related to a field of work or a study. For this example, here we have, for the knowledge, overview on software engineering, introduction to geographic information science and technology, mathematical base, use of geospatial information in research and education, air quality situation focused, relation databases, databases management system, and database principles. For the third section, we have the skills. And what are the skills? Skills represent the ability to apply knowledge and use know-how to complete tasks and solve problems in a certain occupational profile. Here, the skills represented for the ecologist occupational profile are compare and contrast the symbolic and connections theories of human cognition and memory and their ability to model various cases. Then describe the differences between real phenomena, conceptual models, and GIS data representation. And explore the contribution of linguistic to the study of spatial cognition and the role of natural language in the conceptualization of geographic phenomena. I have to mention that these skills are related to the knowledge you are selecting in the body of knowledge. Then. The last section related to the occupational profile tools are the transversal skills, which are those typically considered as not specifically related to a particular job, or task, academic discipline, or area of knowledge, but are those skills that can be used in a wide variety of situations and work settings. For example, here, the related transversal skills for the ecologist are digital competencies, listen actively, think creatively, attend to detail, interact with others. Finally, I have to mention that in order to edit an occupational profile in this tool, you have to register with your name and affiliation, or you can be an anonymous reader, but without the ability to edit within this tool.
Thank you, Joanna, for this short overview on the occupational profile tool. Could you leave your screen shared, because we got in some additional questions,
Yes.
And it might make sense to discuss them with a view on the occupational profile tool. One of the questions that I think is of interest to a lot of people in the audience is, what should I study if I study geoinformatics or geodesy, or maybe also remote sensing, in order to be ready for the future and to acquire the skills that are important in the future? This question was asked by Meha. So, of course, we would all like to know what we have to work on to be ready for the future. And we do have some indications, but it's hard to say what courses are essential for you to take now in order to be prepared for the future. What we can provide are more general directions, because you see that an occupational profile is composed by knowledge and skills. And the knowledge, let's say, is more stable than the skills. And if you now have courses that relate to skills, like you learn how to work with some proprietary software tool, this is an important skill, but this might change in the future because the software tool changes or the whole way in which we perform our work changes. So one thing that we can emphasize here, what to do in order to be prepared for the future, is to understand the concepts and see how the concepts are represented in the tools and know what you're doing. Question the things, the tools that are implemented in software, and try to understand the results that they generate well. Then, of course, we heard in the panel discussion this morning that in our domain, the Earth observation and GI domain, there is a demand for technical skills. We cannot neglect that. Programming skills, software development skills are in high demand, as well as data analysis skills and the work with big data sets, maybe data sets that are not well prepared, gray data sets, in order to find the information content included in the data that you get. So also aspects of integrating data from various sources, combining them for answering the questions that you have. These are skills, and this is knowledge that is certainly going to be high in demand in the future. As the profile also showed, in the very bottom, we have the transversal skills. And in a lot of discussions with people from businesses or the private sector, the public sector as well, we learned that what is important for the employees is their work habits, their mentality, that they are open to solve new problems, that they are open to learn stuff and work hard. So for sure, the idea of lifelong learning and be open for changes in your domain are all aspects that are having an increased importance. And this is also addressed in our project, where we will provide educational offers for specific topics. Like, for example, Florian showed the landslide documentation case, and he is involved in a project where he's going to train people from this semantic field, and he's going to show them how to do that with advanced Earth observation methods. So I think this idea of lifelong learning is important. Can you also think of anything else?
Yeah, in this way it would be also to apply certain knowledge that you acquired within one application domain to other application domains. So my background is not only in landslide documentation, but I also have focused on urban planning for a while and looking at 3D city models. And what I could take away from that time was this user requirements analysis to identify what people need, to identify what actually is the information that that people request to have from Earth observation, and to think of this as a certain approach to tackle problems. So that might be more on a little bit specific way how you said.
Thank you. Eva, do you have anything to add on the future dimension?
So you more or less mentioned already what was coming to my mind. So when I was looking at the interviews that Nereus conducted, they stressed out the importance of hard skills like programming skills, and also deep learning and machine learning skills. And also, as mentioned before, these transversal skills, but also selling skills was one aspect that was mentioned frequently, especially from the private sector companies. So people should have some sort of commercial and selling skills available for the economy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you.
So here you have the representation of EO analyst profile, and what is the knowledge you should have in order to have such a profile, the skills and the transversal skills. Most of the occupational profile derived from the analysis of the business process model and notation were included and described in this occupational profile tool. And they can be searched on, and you all can see their description.
Thank you. Well, there will be more discussion on the tool and all its profiles that are contained in it tomorrow as well in another session. And maybe we can look into the two more questions that we have received. Santiago's question is unfortunately not complete. And again, I have difficulties to find out what you particularly wanted to hear from us, as your question is not completely formulated. So I'm going to go to Stephanie's question, who asked about the three work processes, the three most important work processes to counter the global environmental crisis. And candidates that she mentions are ocean temperature and CO2. Well, that's a tricky question. And I think talking about the global environmental crisis and occupational profiles involved in addressing and countering the crisis could fill a whole day and not just one session. What we try to introduce today is how we would go about identifying the tasks, the work processes that need to be completed by people with a background in Earth observation and geoinformatics, a background in our domain, or at least an understanding of how our tools could be used. So if we would focus on the global environmental crisis, we would sit down, try to collect the work processes that are involved in businesses, in organizations that are working to counter the crisis. So, for example, you can think of someone who really brings together data from different sources, plots them on the map, and shows where are the hotspots affected by the crisis. And then we would analyze the work of that person, and we can probably assign it to the profile of an EO analyst, so someone with a core profile. In the same process, we could also think of someone with a managerial profile, who has a broader overview on different tasks related to such a specific example, and who knows that there are people who can work with satellite images, and who knows about the potential of this technology and this data in order to find out answers to the questions that are important in his decision-making processes. So I cannot tell you what the 3 work processes are to counter the global environmental crisis. I can only use this example for illustrating again how we would go about analyzing such an example in the EU for Geo project at the moment. There was now a question by Sandra on where we can find the tools and the specific profiles. It's not very well readable, Ioana, where the link is to the tool.
Yes, the tool is available on the project website, where the other tools are available as well. And I think after the meeting, we can share this information related to the link of the project and respectively the link of this occupational profile tool.
Yes, thank you. Is there any further question? I think we could take one more, and then anyway, we have to slowly come to an end with this session. Maybe if there is no further question coming in. I'm going to share my screen now, Ioana.
There is one more question.
There is one more question. How do you attract teachers in training to use what you offer? From experience in Germany, many don't know Earth observation, even a big thing, or are too intimidated by the math. Good question. Well, the attraction of teachers or getting involved teachers in using the material that we are presenting, this is really a phase of the project that we yet have to get started with. So our trainings and our series of workshops will start from autumn. And I think then we will have more experiences with teachers directly and the feedback that they share with us. Our hope would be that as we start already early with providing learners in schools already with some Earth observation and geoinformatics experience, over time, these people who are exposed early to the ideas of Earth observation and geoinformatics will become teachers. And they should not be intimidated anymore to at least show how we are using the tools for our purposes. Doesn't mean that we have to go very deep in the math when we are just applying some of the techniques or using the tools. So I think we can come to an end with this session, and we are invited to stay connected with EU4Geo. This is the link to the EU4Geo website, and there are different ways on how to get involved. And I hope that also some of the questions related to higher education and teacher training will be addressed in the coming months during the project, and maybe there might be a Medium article or something else related to our experiences with the trainings that might be of interest to some of you. There is also an illustration how you can actually get involved. You can either contact us or directly get involved by getting our newsletter or something like that. And if you have interest in some particular slides, I think it's okay to ask via the contact form for the slides, and we will make sure that the slides reach you. Anne Johnson sent a comment and seems to appreciate the presentation of the tools that are much advanced in comparison to the stage in which they were at the last time that we met. And well, with that, from our side, I think we can conclude the session. Ioana, you want to say something to finish off the session?
Thank you for this opportunity for presenting. First of all, the pre-recorded business process and occupational profile presentation, and now that I get insight with the occupational profile tool. Thank you to the organizer, and thank you PLUS for coordination.
Thank you, Ioana. So I think with that we are done for this session, and I wish all the participants successful EO Summit for the rest of the days. Thank you.